We got the story from CBS News. Anheuser-Busch CEO Brendan Whitworth says financial assistance is being sent to wholesalers, beer distributors impacted by boycott backlash. Let me provide an alternate context for what this information is. First, we'll take the neutral approach. The Anheuser CEO states that they are giving money to people who carry their beer. Let me make it a little bit more hyperbolic for you. The boycott was so effective that Bud Light now has to pay people to carry its beer. Because let's ask this question. Why would Anheuser-Busch send financial assistance to wholesalers and distributors? These distributors could simply just, carry different beers, like shift their business, reduce their workforce, say we're going to get off Bud Light. No. This is Anheuser-Busch saying, we're going to pay you to keep operating at this level because we're going to try and pull out of this one. Otherwise, the wholesalers say, see you later. The boycott has gotten so bad that they are now paying people to carry their beer.
Yeah, and it's incredible to watch, actually. And on our app, the day after Bud Light, that ad campaign was released with Dylan Mulvaney, we saw an 800% increase in searches for beer on the platform because people are tired of it. They're actually looking for other options. Now Modelo is the top beer above Bud Light. And it was funny because some of the media tried to paint it as like, well, that's because people are done with domestic beer. That's why. That's why Bud Light's tanked. And it's like, dude, all these other domestic beers have actually risen in value. This
Miller
one's
and Coors are skyrocketing.
Exactly. And so, what's interesting in all this is that we don't think much about how the actions of that man and the CEO of Anheuser-Busch, if you can't see the screen, and his cronies and the ad campaign agency out of San Francisco, how much that actually negatively impacted the people caught in the crossfire of all of this, which is like the distributors, the middlemen, the salespeople. Like they absolutely got screwed because you cannot sell this beer anymore.
Have you ever seen The Dark Knight?
Oh, yeah. Good movie.
You guys have seen that one, right?
Absolutely.
I love the fan theory that the Joker's actually the good guy, right? And the reason is, by the end of the movie, he's gotten rid of a dangerous vigilante, Batman. Batman retires. He's gotten rid of the mob and all the criminals. What the Joker did throughout that movie destroyed the organized crime in the city and destroyed the vigilante fighting it. It's crazy. And then in the next movie, it's like he's been retired for a couple decades. I bring this up because what if this Anheuser-Busch CEO is actually just that? He looks like the bad guy, but deep down, he was sitting at his office and he was looking at all the ESG and woke stuff. And he's like, the only way this changes is if someone pushes it over the top. And then a single tear rolls down his cheek and he's like, I will do the right thing. And then he gets on his,
a martyr.
He gets on his phone and he's like, Dylan Mulvaney, and he's like, we've got a job to do. And because in this interview, apparently the Anheuser-Busch CEO has not ruled out hiring Dylan Mulvaney in the future.
Yeah, it's absurd.
And has doubled down on pride and has said they will continue, and they have always been big supporters of this stuff. When your customers tell you, we won't buy your stock, we won't buy your beer, and we will advocate for everyone not to buy your beer, to the point where you have to pay wholesalers and distributors money to keep up their operations, you'd think at that point, you'd be like, we're going to listen to our customers and get away from this stuff. We're sorry. He won't do it.
No, Whitworth kind of threw the guilt card. He's like, I'm really sad because it really impacts the employees who've been working. They have pride in this, 165-year-old company that's been around forever. Like he is trying to say people boycotting this beer are the ones hurting these people who work in their, breweries or whatever. And it's like, you made this call. You're not taking any personal responsibility. In fact, you seem to be willing to risk their jobs again. It's crazy.
Well, yeah, his doubling down is a controlled demolition. Like, if he actually feels bad for his employees, he has single-handedly caused that problem. By the way, like, I run a company, you run a company. If something bad happens in the company, it ultimately, at the end of the day, is your fault because we take responsibility for the company because the buck stops with us. This has been the exact opposite. Blaming your consumers for pain that's been put on your employees rather than taking responsibility is like the most low-life thing that I've ever seen a company executive do. The Target CEO is doing the same thing right now. And now for you to paper over it with this House of Cards sham organization you've created by having to literally do a rebate program and pay people to buy the beer, just propping up the House of Cards further. I have never seen anything like it. Plus, to your theory, he was former CIA. and they specialize in regime change.
No
so if
way.
if he is trying to topple the woke regime, maybe that is his ultimate goal, because it across the board has decimated these woke companies. $50 billion of market cap dropped just between Anheuser-Busch, Disney, and Target alone in the past 2 months. So I have never seen a more suicidal campaign from a company than doubling down on this.
What about Public Square? What are you guys seeing? The opposite?
Well, yeah, that $50 billion has to go somewhere. Like, that's the interesting thing, is that these boycotts are only effective if you can ultimately shift your lifestyle spending away to something else, which is why we exist. So we created the app so that if you're tired of Bud Light, if you're tired of Target, you can actually go to something else. So that's why when Bud Light toppled, we actually, $27 billion in market cap dropped. We saw an 800% increase in beer. When Target came out and did what they did, we released a Target shopping guide that actually drove our app to top 5 apps in the entire app store for a week across all genres. So anytime one of these cultural mediums for commerce decides to be insane, we're trying to be there to clean up the mess and provide an alternative so that you can actually shift your spending away. And what's happened is we've had some people that said, I said that I was not going to go to Target for June, but I just couldn't imagine getting Target away from my life in its entirety. And now they're saying, I'm actually finding my toilet paper, paper towels, household cleaning products on Public Square, and I don't even need to do this anymore. And we have people asking us, can you open retail stores? Can we have this literally be a replacement from Target? So that's where we're going. But I think the success of Public Square is a sign of two things. One is that the boycotts are working and that people are tired of woke capital. That's number one. Number two is that people are actually hopeful enough to go the extra mile to do something different, because the worst indictment of our country and the economic state currently would be that if people either just kept shopping at these companies even though they hated them, and these companies obviously hate us in return, or the other thing, which is that these people basically, boycott for a week and then lay off because we don't have any other options. Neither of those things are happening. People are actually shifting their spending away, and this is actually working, which is pretty incredible to watch.
I think Bud Light, this is why I made the joke about this guy being the secret hero, because what Bud Light did was shattered the dam. The cracks were forming, and then the CEO of Bud Light just took a sledgehammer to that thing, and the floodgates have erupted. And what happens is, for the longest time, regular people are scared. If they speak out, they will get canceled. They live in fear of this, especially younger people. Then people notice that Bud Light is tanking, and they think to themselves, whoa, if I say something, it's actually popular. Now people aren't scared anymore. Now they feel good. Now it feels good to go shop somewhere else. Now you post a video about how you're not going to Target, and you get 1 million views.
Yep.
So there's even opportunists here who are going to jump on board. This is where I think the tide shifts, because the wokeness is falling into it's falling into the lame cultural space where it is becoming negative. It's not interesting. And what is kind of interesting is if you look at like punk rock stuff, these guys were dressing in very, very weird ways that were supposed to be shocking to the average person. You had, I think it was, correct me if I'm wrong, film, Sid Vicious wore the swastika.
Yep.
Yeah.
The idea was to offend people, to be like, I'm not a part of your thing. Then all of a sudden, punk became cool, and it became mainstream, and it became multi-billion dollars. How things kind of go.
Underground has totally the actual underground has completely and totally disappeared in the world of the internet, because part of the underground used to be you had to physically go to places to find this music. You had to go to certain record stores. You had to go to certain places to buy certain magazines. You had to go to shows that were at certain locations. It wasn't presented to you and it wasn't given to you. So you had to put effort into
You had to work for it.
You had to work for it, yeah.
Then those underground things became popular. And so here's what I think. For a period, you get this rebellious, anti-woke subculture pushing back on the corporations, on Disney, on Bud Light. Bud Light, the number one brand. Like all trends in counterculture, they start to become more and more dominant because people who are passionate about these things, believe in them, don't give them up. And the average person just doesn't care. So what happens now? Bud Light went from number one to number two. Modelo is now number one. And to be honest, Bud Light was always kind of a number one. It's very funny. I'm very funny. And now it's just crap. It always was. But this shows that regular people this counterculture is now becoming more and more dominant and moving into the mainstream space. My prediction is in a few years, we win.
Yep.
I don't know what that means politically.
Well, obviously, I think on the political ramifications, like if you want to know how decisions are made in society, look at where the money goes. And so if you can shift the profit structures of society back toward the values of everyday, actual, normal people, I think we win even politically. But people ask me often, like, do you think Bud Light can redeem themselves at this point? And I think the clear answer is no, because they've become the butt of a cultural joke. Like I saw somebody tweet recently and it went super viral. The biggest insult of 2023 is you look like someone who would drink Bud Light at Target. And I'm like, you're now screwed. You see all these funny videos going around of people buying a Bud Light and it totally alters their personality. It's like, you can't come back from that. And I think that what's really exciting about that is people are waking up to have a general sort of, we talked about this earlier, there's an anti-establishment sense in society at the moment that I really embrace. I think it's wonderful. That should also carry into small businesses. So instead of going to Bud Light, why don't you go to a local brewer that's making awesome local craft beer that a lot of this is actually super affordable. They don't hate you. They're not going to lecture you about gender. And it is that simple. If you can do that for all these different industries, like on Public Square, 90% of our businesses are small businesses. And it's great because those are the ones that are not going to lecture you about stuff. They're not bought into an ESG agenda or DEI agenda. And they're actually shifting society back to like normal people's values. People all the time ask, like, are you political? And I'm not political. I'm like a normal person from 2006. And it's just the country
somehow
left
you've ended
us.
up here.
Exactly. And so when commerce has become so politicized and we're just trying to offer this solution that is not going to tell you about gender while you're trying to buy pants for your kids, like it's kind of a refreshing thing for people. So you're seeing normal people wake up. And you talked earlier about how like the social issues of gender are becoming such a hot button political topic for the mama bears. 70% of American consumers are moms.
Yeah.
So if you get that audience pissed at your brand and ready for an alternative, like that's our number one demographic on the app. It's 70% moms, because if you have the mama bears mobilized to a product they believe in, they're going to tell other friends. They're the best evangelists for things. And alternative is true. If they hate your brand, if you become the target in their eyes, they're going to tank you.
Well, that's why influencer marketing initially started with like mommy bloggers, right?
Yep.
Who were on the internet
right.
and being like, here's my life. And people were like, what products do you use? Tell me everything you do because I am looking for your recommendation. I think that is an army that Bud Light did not think. Maybe they should have courted the moms. Instead of Dylan Mulvaney, they should have been like,
well,
hello.
they were trying. They did
not
that commercial
effectively.
with that actor and his wife. And it's like the woman is sitting on the couch and she's on hold. And then Miles, what's his face, the actor, grabs 2 beers and cracks them open and dances over.
But that was like couples. They didn't like chase the moms. They weren't
that was specifically targeting women. That was like report covered in like the ad marketing news as this is how they'll get women. Because typically Bud Light was like...
It wasn't effective. What I'm saying is they should have gone harder in the we're chasing moms. Like they should have been replacing all of the stereotype of like
point is,
a wine mom. They should have been like, you're a Bud Light mom.
My point is they tried that ad. It probably didn't work. So they went, Dylan Mulvaney?
Yeah.
Market to kids, I guess.
Bud Light
That
Always a
certainly
good
didn't work.
conclusion to market beer to children.
Bud Light wasn't exactly, or isn't exactly a great tasting
No.
No, it's number one.
thing.
I don't think they
It's
really could have
number
won
one.
moms. I think that's a fallacy. But I think it's important to note that women control spending in most households.
That's not, yeah, that shouldn't be a surprise to people. I mean, that's been the standard for as long as I can remember. When I was a kid, I heard stories that women can do most of the do most of the grocery shopping and purchasing for the household because they run the household.
They also
generally.
typically control most of the philanthropic giving too. So
Yeah,
any charities
makes sense.
decided by women. So this is this strange paradox where women are constantly being told, men are oppressing you, but really they have all this power. They control basically American spending, and they don't acknowledge
That's
it.
been alive for a long
but they
time.
don't acknowledge it, and that's what bothers
That's
me.
because it's not convenient.
True.
I mean, like, if you're in a position where, like, everyone's telling you that you're oppressed and you're the second class gender, and yet you're still bossing your husband around, are you going to make a whole lot of noise about, no, we don't need extra benefits from the government and blah, blah, blah. No, you're going to just shut your mouth and you're going to go ahead and say it's fine.
Cut.
I was going to jump to another story if you wanted to wrap
Oh,
it
I
up.
was going to say Ali Wong has this bit where she says like, feminist ruins everything by saying by saying we can do anything. It's like stop talking, don't tell them.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.